Hi guys, and welcome to today's task. We are once again working on the foundation walls of this cold storage and the entire house. There's one side of the form set up, and then there's this archway. And this archway is actually what happens to be the doorway into the cold storage. I measured off that wall 8 feet, and then I added 4 foot 3 inches to account for our door, and that gives us our dimensions. So it goes up 7 feet. So now we are up above the doorway, and this is the top. And because the garage has that precast floor that sits on top, and we're not going to have any cement down here, we have to structurally make this sound. One of the requirements the engineer gave was we couldn't come up any higher with the door, so it had to be only 7 feet. And then the other thing was we have to build what we call a beam here. Typically the rebar is spanned about every foot coming up, but there's 4 that come into here, and these wrap around it, and they'll all span through here. It'll be wire tied, and that will create that structural beam we need so that in this 4 foot 3 inch wide area, it's structurally sound. And that way we don't have to have a lintel or anything like that either. This will all replace that. Another reason for being on site, this is originally just going to go straight up out of the foundation, which is pretty typical, but it doesn't really have to. If it can come out here somewhere where the mechanical panel is going to be, that's more ideal. So I was here, we were looking at it, and made the change. Like, it pays so much to be on site and to look at your prints and know what you're looking at. Now it's just coiled up, tucked in, and ready to go until we're done. So most of the forms are set for the walls on both sides, and the rebar is ran in most of them, but there's a ledger that has to be created for the precast garage to sit on. That's where these forms come in. They're a little bit different because they're not really holding the concrete the same way. They're really just keeping concrete out, so this creates a void in the form. So when you pull all the forms off, you'll have a shelf. This height, this width, perfect. You have the 2 mats. This is the outer mat, which will be the taller side of the foundation wall. This is the inner mat, that'll be the lower side of the foundation wall. And they've gone ahead and snapped lines. So that way, as soon as they get around to this point with those boards, they'll just set them on the existing nails, make sure it lines up with the above chalk line, nail it in, send it home. Here is a pro tip. Don't just trust these wood boards to be straight. Run a string line, shoot it all the way across, and see if your forms line up. And the fact that they're using strings on top makes me so happy, because some people don't, and some people don't take the time to go back and straighten it. They just call it straight or assume it's good enough, and that's just not the quality of work that I want, and that's not the quality of work that these guys do, which I'm really grateful for. I'm sure you guys remember, but when we poured our footings, they had to put what we call a Simpson strong wall in, and it's buried into our footings, and now it's got to go up through our foundation. But our foundation wall comes to about here, and because it comes to that chalk line, we need these bolts to come up to that chalk line. So I got these coupler nuts, which allows this bolt and another piece of this to connect to each other. So we've got to take this off. There we go. That guy down. I wish I had a welder here so I could weld that. Guys, we are back at the work site today, and we are finishing up these Simpson strong walls. So they're going to be pouring the cement next week, so that video will post next week. But for this week, I'm going to show you the finishing steps for what we're doing to set up these forms. Everything is got formed, everything has its shelves built in for all of our trusses to sit into, and for the suspended slab, everything's wire tied and rebarred. It really is set, other than these little openings that I'm accessing these Simpson strong walls for. And so because we're bringing them up above grade, I've got to extend them, and I don't necessarily have to do what I'm doing, but I really want to feel secure about it, because once it gets messed up, there's no fixing it. So it's really one of those things I want to secure as much as possible, and it only takes a little bit of time, so it's worth it to me. Here is our coupling nut, and here is the threaded rod extension that I need to add. But I really want to just make sure things stay secure and don't ever get spun out in the traffic going across any of this. Because this nut is here, it's tight, it really would be probably okay, but I just want to go the extra mile because this is the original bottom nut. And this nut actually has a tack weld in it so that nothing goes below it. So I'm going to do a similar thing here. The coupling nuts are set, and this is where I want to tack them in place, and then I'm going to screw them on top and tack those in place as well. And I think that just should give us that really solid feel that I really want it to be. Because this is the structural integrity of the back end of the house, these Simpson strong walls. Because it's mostly windows back there, you have to have these walls so that there's no racking. When there's no windows on a house, there's OSB on the sides that kind of stitch it together. They weave back and forth between the studs going vertical and the sheeting going sideways. It creates this tight bond that makes the house not rock anymore. And because we have a lot of glass back here, we don't have that option. So we have to use these Simpson strong ties that get rid of that racking for us. Since this is the structural integrity of the back side of the house, I really want to make sure these are set in stone and not going anywhere, which is why I'm going the extra mile to weld them really, really solid. I've got to work this in slowly, just kind of do a little bit, back off, do a little bit, back off, and I got a little greedy, but I think that guy's almost pretty well set. Guys, the last step of the Simpson strong wall is to kind of bring it down in place, and then you actually nail it to the outside of your form. To get this to suck to the wall like it's supposed to, we're going to go on the other side real quick, and you bend over those nails. There we go. Now that just holds it in place, so it's ready for us to pour underneath it and up to it. You guys, we are a lot closer to getting our foundation walls all the way in. Next time you see this, we will have concrete foundation walls, and we'll be ready to start prepping for our cement pad in the basement area, and that is a big task that we've got to do. So if you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and until next time, we'll see you later. Good morning, guys, and welcome. Oh, blessings. And we will be ready. Next time so since this is the structural integrity, and be ready to start pouring. When there's no windows on a house, there's plywood behind it. Next time you see me, and when you have a house with a lot of siding or whatnot, and the rebar is ready to go, blessings.